The waitress looked at the gold ring on his hand and whispered, "Sir, my mother has a ring exactly like yours." Michael Kane stopped breathing. At 2:13 in the morning, inside a nearly empty diner in South Philadelphia, those 7 words were more dangerous than any gun pointed at him. Outside, freezing rain blurred the city lights. Inside, Emma Reed was just another exhausted waitress trying to pay her mother's medical bills, unaware that the quiet man drinking black coffee belonged to one of the most feared families in Philadelphia. But Michael knew something she didn't. Only 3 rings like that had ever existed, and one had disappeared with a man blamed for murdering his brother 12 years ago. What follows is a story of buried secrets, family betrayal, forbidden trust, and a truth powerful enough to destroy an empire. Stay until the end, then tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and like the video if you enjoy cinematic Mafia stories. Those 7 words stayed with Michael Kane long after the diner disappeared behind the black glass of his SUV. "My mother has a ring exactly like yours." He sat in the back seat without speaking, his right hand resting against his knee. The gold ring caught the passing streetlights every few seconds, flashing beneath the darkness like something trying to remind him it had never belonged to the past. Across from him, Mason Cole watched in silence. Mason had known Michael long enough to understand the difference between anger and fear. Michael was not angry, not yet. That was what bothered him. The SUV moved north through wet Philadelphia streets. Rain had turned to sleet, leaving a thin silver shine across parked cars and empty sidewalks. Storefronts were dark. Traffic lights changed for streets with no traffic. Finally, Mason spoke. "You believe her?" Michael kept looking at the ring. She had no reason to lie. She could have seen yours before. Where Mason had no answer, Michael turned the ring slowly around his finger. 3 had been made, only 3. Ethan had designed them years ago, back when the Kane brothers still believed family could mean something other than territory, money, funerals, and revenge. 1 for Ethan, 1 for Michael, 1 for Daniel Cross. Ethan had been buried with his. Michael still wore his. Daniel had disappeared 12 years ago. His ring should have disappeared with him. Mason leaned back. "We searched for Cross for 6 years. 7. We searched everywhere." Michael finally looked at him. "No, we searched everywhere we thought he would run." Mason studied his face. "You think the waitress is his daughter? I think I want to know why her mother owned something Daniel Cross never took off his hand." Michael glanced toward the driver. "Get everything on Emma Reed." Mason gave a small nod. "Employment, family addresses, everything." How far back? Michael looked out at the frozen city. "As far as she exists." By the time Emma Reed reached her apartment, the sky over South Philadelphia had begun turning from black to the color of dirty steel. She climbed 3 flights of narrow stairs with aching feet and a paper bag containing 2 containers of soup the diner manager had let her take home. The hallway smelled like radiator heat, laundry detergent, and somebody's cigarette smoke. Apartment 3C looked exactly the way she had left it. 2 locks on the door, a crooked welcome mat. A pharmacy receipt tucked beneath the frame because the mail slot had broken months ago. Emma unlocked the door quietly. The television was still on. Her mother was asleep in the living room beneath an old quilt curled sideways in a recliner that had once belonged to Emma's grandmother. Nora Reed looked smaller every month. That frightened Emma more than the dementia did. The woman who had raised her alone had once been impossible to slow down. Nora could work 10 hours cleaning hotel rooms, come home, make dinner, argue with the landlord, fix a leaking faucet, and still stay awake long enough to help Emma with homework. Now, 3 prescription bottles sat beside her chair. A 4th was almost empty. Emma placed the soup in the refrigerator and pulled the pharmacy receipt from her pocket. $287. She stared at the number, then at the envelope beside the microwave. Final notice. She turned it face down. There were some numbers you could survive only by refusing to look at them too long. Emma took off her coat. As she hung it beside the door, Michael Kane's voice returned to her. "Don't take that ring anywhere." She had not told him she possessed it. Not exactly. He had guessed because she reacted too quickly. That irritated her. More than that, it unsettled her. Emma looked toward the kitchen cabinet above the refrigerator. For most of her childhood, the old cigar box had simply existed. Her mother moved it from apartment to apartment, but never opened it in front of Emma. When Emma was 16, she had once asked what was inside. Nora had said things that belonged to somebody who made bad choices. Emma had assumed she meant her father, David Reed, a man represented in Emma's life by 2 photographs, a birth certificate, and a grave somewhere in Ohio that Nora had never taken her to see. Emma dragged a chair beneath the cabinet. She reached behind a stack of recipe books and pulled out the box, dark wood, brass latch, one corner cracked. Emma opened it. Inside were old photographs, a folded hospital bracelet from the year she was born, several letters tied with string, and the ring. Gold, heavy, the same broken scales Michael Kane wore on his hand. She lifted it carefully. Behind her, the floor creaked. Emma turned. Nora stood in the doorway. For one moment, her mother simply stared. Then every trace of sleep vanished from her face. "Put that down." Emma had heard Nora frightened before, during hospital stays, during episodes when she woke and could not remember where she was, during storms after a transformer exploded outside their old apartment. This was different. "Mom, who gave you this?" Nora crossed the kitchen faster than Emma had seen her move in months. She grabbed the ring from Emma's hand. "Where did you take it? I didn't take it anywhere. Who saw it, Mom? Who saw it?" Emma stared at her. Her mother's fingers were shaking. "A man at work had one." Nora went completely still. "What man? I don't know." That was a lie, but only because Emma suddenly felt she should not say Michael's name. Nora gripped the edge of the counter. "Did he tell you who he was? No. What did he look like? Tall, dark hair, mid-30s maybe?" Nora closed her eyes. Emma stepped closer. "Mom, what is this?" Nora whispered something Emma could not hear. What Nora opened her eyes. For a rare moment, the fog behind them was gone. Her gaze was sharp, almost painfully clear. Did a Kane see that ring? Emma's stomach tightened. The apartment seemed to shrink around them. "How do you know that name?" Nora looked toward the windows, then toward the door. She locked the deadbolt even though Emma had already locked it. "We have to go. Go where I don't know." "Mom, stop." Nora moved toward the bedroom. Emma caught her arm. "Tell me what is happening." Nora turned. For a second, Emma saw not the confused woman she had been caring for, but the mother from 20 years earlier. Fierce, alert, terrified of something Emma could not see. "He promised they would never find us." "Who promised?" Nora's lips moved. "Daniel." Emma stared at her. "Who is Daniel?" The clarity vanished almost instantly. Nora frowned. "What you just said, Daniel." "No, I didn't." "Yes, you did." Nora looked down at the ring in her hand as if she could not remember where it had come from. Then she whispered, "Your father hated snow." Emma felt cold move through her chest. "My father was David." Nora said nothing. "David Reed." Nora looked toward the living room. The television showed a morning weather report. She seemed suddenly exhausted. "No hospital," she murmured. Emma followed her. "What, no police?" Nora sat down. Her gaze drifted toward the wall. Then, barely audible, she said one last thing. "No Kanes." Across town, Michael had not gone home. By 7 in the morning, he was standing inside a private office on the 2nd floor of Kane Freight Holdings near the Delaware River. The building looked legitimate because most of it was. Trucks moved construction materials, restaurant supplies, imported wine and machinery through 3 states. Some shipments carried other things. Michael stood by the window while Mason worked from a laptop at the conference table. Steam rose from a mug neither man had touched. Mason broke the silence. "Emma Grace Reed, 25. Michael turned. Keep going. Born in Pennsylvania. No arrests, no sealed juvenile record. Nothing interesting. Work. Marlowe's Diner, 5 nights a week. Weekend shift at a private assisted living facility. She started nursing school at Temple 3 years ago. Dropped out deferred enrollment when her mother got sick." Michael said nothing. Mason continued. "Credit cards are close to maxed out. Medical debt just over $60,000. Car was repossessed 8 months ago. Rent is 2 months behind." Michael looked toward the window again. None of that sounded like the life of a woman connected to a hidden fortune. Father David Reed, listed as deceased. When Mason frowned. "That's where things get strange." Michael turned back. "There's a death certificate filed in Ohio 12 years ago. Caused industrial accident. Body no accessible report." Michael's expression sharpened. "Why not? County Archive claims the original file was damaged during a records transfer." Michael gave him a look. Mason nodded. Exactly. And Nora Reed, 54. Heart condition. Early onset dementia diagnosed 2 years ago. Before Reed. Mason hesitated. There is no before Reed. Michael stepped closer. What does that mean? It means Nora Reed appears 12 years ago. Mason turned the laptop toward him. First tax record 12 years ago. First rental contract same year. First driver's license same year. Before that, nothing. No school, nothing. Marriage, nothing. Previous address, nothing. Michael stared at the screen. People could vanish. He had made people vanish. But creating a clean identity that survived federal databases, hospital systems, tax records, and private investigators for more than a decade required money access or both. Mason leaned back. She didn't do this alone. Michael's eyes remained on Nora's photograph. No. Cross. Maybe. Mason shook his head. Daniel was good at violence. He wasn't good at paperwork. Michael knew that was true. Daniel could move guns through 3 counties without leaving a trace, but he once forgot to renew the registration on his own car. Someone else had created Nora Reed. Michael asked, who had access 12 years ago? Mason did not answer immediately. That was answer enough. The Kane family had people in city offices, county courts, police departments, and banks. Not anymore, not at the level they once had. But 12 years earlier, when Ethan Kane was still alive, a woman could disappear in Philadelphia only if someone powerful wanted her gone, or wanted her protected. Michael picked up his coat. Mason looked up. Where are you going? To ask the only person still alive who remembers everything. Victor Kane ate breakfast at the same table every Tuesday, not because he enjoyed routine, because he enjoyed making people arrange themselves around his. The restaurant belonged to a cousin through 2 corporations and a trust. Officially, Victor Kane had no interest in it. Unofficially, no one sat at his table without permission. When Michael entered the private dining room, Victor looked up from the newspaper. At 62, Victor still carried himself like a man 20 years younger. Silver hair, tailored navy suit, clean hands. Nothing about him suggested the violence that had surrounded the Kane name for half a century. Victor smiled. You look terrible. Michael sat across from him. Good morning to you too. Victor poured coffee. You sleep sometimes. You should try it more often. Michael accepted the cup. On the wall behind Victor hung a framed photograph of Ethan. Ethan was smiling. Michael hated photographs like that. They captured people before the worst thing that would ever happen to them. Victor noticed where he was looking. You still talk to him? Michael returned his gaze to the table. Only when I'm drunk. Victor smiled faintly. Then Ethan gets more conversation than I do. For several minutes they discussed business, a labor dispute, a shipping contract, one of the restaurant managers skimming cash. Michael waited until Victor relaxed. Then he asked, You remember Daniel Cross's ring? Victor's hand paused above his coffee, less than a second. Then he stirred in sugar. Why found myself thinking about it? Dangerous hobby. Thinking about dead men. Michael watched him carefully. Victor leaned back. Daniel wore it until the day he murdered your brother. You sure? Victor's eyes narrowed slightly. About what that he wore it that day? A long silence. Victor folded his newspaper. What is this really about? Michael took a drink. Nothing. Victor laughed once. You were a terrible liar at 16 and you haven't improved. Michael said nothing. Victor's expression softened. Daniel Cross betrayed Ethan. We know that. We know he planted the bomb. We know enough. Do we? Victor leaned closer. I watched what that man's betrayal did to you. His voice became quieter. You were 23 years old. You stopped eating, stopped sleeping, spent every night looking for somebody to kill. Michael remembered. Victor continued. I buried one nephew and nearly lost another. You didn't lose me. No, because I gave you something to hold on to. Michael looked at him. Daniel. Purpose. Victor held his gaze. Do not romanticize ghosts because time has made the blood harder to smell. Michael said maybe ghosts aren't the problem. Victor's expression changed. Barely. Then he smiled again. You have always been too much like Ethan. Michael stood. Victor looked disappointed. You came all this way for one question. Michael buttoned his coat. One answer. As Michael reached the door, Victor spoke. Michael. He turned. Victor studied him. If some stranger has put Daniel Cross back in your head, forget them. Michael did not move. Victor continued casually. Nothing good comes from digging up what this family already buried. Michael's voice remained calm. What stranger? The silence was tiny. Most men would never have noticed it. Michael did. Victor smiled. Figure of speech. Michael left without answering. At 11:30 that morning, Emma stood outside Finch Gold and Loan with Daniel Cross's ring closed inside her fist. She had spent 2 hours convincing herself not to come. Then the pharmacy called. Nora's prescription could not be refilled without payment. Emma looked at the ring. Whatever secrets her mother had attached to it, secrets did not keep a heart beating. Money did. A bell rang when she entered. The shop smelled like dust and old metal. Harold Finch sat behind thick glass reading a newspaper. He was close to 80 and wore a magnifying lens clipped to his glasses. Emma slid the ring through the opening. I need to know what this is worth. Harold picked it up. His expression changed immediately. He turned it over once, then twice. His fingers stopped. Where did you get this, my mother? He pushed it back toward her. I can't buy it. You didn't even weigh it. I don't need to. Is it fake, no stolen? Harold looked toward the security camera above the door, then toward Emma. Take it home. I need money. I said I cannot help you. Emma lowered her voice. Yesterday a man told me not to show this to anyone. Now you're acting like I brought you a grenade. Tell me what it is. Harold leaned closer to the glass. Some things are worth more as warnings than they are as gold. That doesn't mean anything. It means go home. Emma stared at him. Harold's voice became almost gentle. You look like a good kid. I'm 25. To me, that is a kid. He pushed the ring farther through the slot. Take care of your mother. Emma froze. I never told you it was for my mother. Harold realized his mistake. Emma grabbed the ring. Who are you? He looked away. Emma backed toward the door. When the bell stopped ringing behind her, Harold locked the entrance. He waited until she disappeared around the corner. Then he took out an old phone kept beneath the counter. He dialed a number from memory. Victor Kane answered on the second ring. Yes. Harold stared at the door. A girl came in. Silence. She had Daniel Cross's ring. Victor did not speak for several seconds. Describe her. Harold did. Young. Dark hair. 25 maybe. Said the ring belonged to her mother. Victor closed his eyes on the other end of the line. Did she give you a name? No. Did she come alone? Yes. Victor opened his eyes. Good. That afternoon, Mason entered Michael's office carrying a paper file instead of a laptop. That alone told Michael the information mattered. What Mason placed the file on the desk. I found Nora. Michael opened it. The photograph showed a younger woman with Emma's eyes. The name beneath it was not Nora Reed, Nora Bennett. Michael read the hospital report. 12 years old, emergency treatment, a child listed as dependent, Emma Bennett. Michael's gaze moved to the emergency contact, Daniel Cross. His hand stopped. Mason stood across from him. She wasn't just connected to Daniel. Michael looked up. Mason said it quietly. She was his family. For several seconds, Michael heard nothing but the hum of the building. Daniel Cross had a woman, a daughter, a life. All of it hidden. Michael looked down at Emma's date of birth. 25 years old. Daniel had carried her photograph while sitting across tables from Ethan. Daniel had attended birthdays at the Kane house. He had shared whiskey with Michael. He had bled beside him. And not once had he mentioned Emma. Michael closed the file. A memory surfaced. A rooftop. Summer heat. Ethan laughing. Daniel standing beside him with a cigarette between his fingers. Michael was 23 and still believed the world could be divided neatly into men he trusted and men he did not. Ethan held out 3 small boxes. Michael opened his. Inside was the ring. He laughed. What is this, a wedding? Daniel grinned. If it is, you are not my type. Ethan rolled his eyes. It is a promise. Michael looked at the cracked scales. A promise to what Ethan walked to the edge of the roof. Philadelphia stretched beneath them. To build something our children do not have to be ashamed of. Daniel's smile disappeared. For one brief moment, he looked almost sad. Back in the present, Michael stared at the photograph of Emma Reed. He finally understood why. Across the city, Victor Kane stood alone in his office with Harold Finch's call still burning in his mind. He opened a locked drawer. Inside was an old photograph. Ethan, Michael, Daniel. 3 young men standing on a warehouse roof. Victor studied Daniel's face. Then he picked up his phone. A man answered. Victor said, "Find the girl from Finch's shop." The man asked, "What do you want done?" Victor looked at Ethan's photograph on the wall. His voice remained calm. "Find her mother, too." A pause. Alive, Victor lowered the photograph until Ethan's face disappeared beneath the desk. No. By the time Victor Kane gave the order, Emma Reed was already walking back toward Marlowe's with Daniel Cross's ring hidden inside the deepest pocket of her coat. She kept one hand around it the entire way, not because she was afraid of losing it, because she was beginning to understand that the ring was not valuable in the way she had hoped. It was valuable in the way loaded guns were valuable. Someone saw it and immediately decided who had to die. Emma did not know that yet. She only knew that Harold Finch had looked at her as if she had carried death into his shop. At 6 that evening, Marlowe's diner was crowded with people escaping the cold. A family occupied the booth near the window. 2 construction workers sat at the counter. A young couple argued quietly over fries they had stopped eating 20 minutes earlier. Emma moved between tables with a coffee pot in one hand and a forced smile on her face. Her mother had called 3 times. The first time Nora wanted to know where Emma was. The second time she wanted to know when Emma's father would be home. The third time Nora had forgotten she had called at all. Emma had promised she would finish her shift early. Then the front door opened. She looked up automatically. Michael Kane walked inside. This time he came alone. No men by the entrance. No black SUV waiting directly outside. No expensive coat buttoned neatly over a suit. He looked almost ordinary. Almost. Emma had learned enough in the last 24 hours to understand that ordinary men did not make rooms feel quieter by entering them. Michael took the same corner booth. Emma stood behind the counter watching him. He looked at her. She considered pretending not to see him. Instead, she grabbed the coffee pot. When she reached his table, she did not bother with a smile. "You again. Coffee. Let me guess. Black." "Yes." She filled his cup. Michael watched her hand. The ring. Emma stopped pouring. "What about it? Did you take it anywhere?" "No." Michael looked up at her. Emma held his gaze. He said, "You are very bad at lying." She set the coffee pot down harder than necessary. "And you are very bad at being likable." For the first time, the corner of his mouth moved. It was not quite a smile. I have never had much need for it. Emma folded her arms. "What do you want? I want to speak to your mother." "No." "Emma, no." His expression remained controlled. She leaned closer. "You showed up in my diner in the middle of the night. You started asking questions about my mother. You knew things about a ring you refused to explain. Now you want me to bring you into her apartment. I did not say I wanted to go to her apartment." "Good, because you are not going." Michael looked toward the window. Something changed in his face. It happened so quickly Emma almost missed it. His eyes shifted past her shoulder, toward the street. A dark sedan sat across from the diner. Engine running, 2 men inside. Michael watched the reflection in the glass rather than looking directly at them. He asked, "Where did you take the ring?" Emma sighed. "I told you, no." His voice was quieter now, not angry, focused. Where Emma followed his gaze, the sedan did not look unusual. Neither did the men. That made her more nervous. "A pawn shop." Michael looked back at her. "When?" "This morning." "What shop?" "Finch Gold and Loan." Michael stood. "Get your coat." Emma stared at him. "What now?" "You cannot walk in here and give me orders." One of the men in the sedan opened his door. Michael reached for Emma's wrist. She pulled away immediately. "Do not touch me." "Emma, listen to me." The second man got out of the car. Michael's tone changed. "Get down!" The diner door opened. Emma saw one man reach inside his jacket. Michael moved before she understood why. He caught her around the waist and pulled her behind the counter. The first gunshot shattered the coffee machine. Glass exploded over the floor. Someone screamed. Then everyone screamed. Emma hit the tile hard. Michael was already drawing a pistol from beneath his jacket. A second shot punched through the metal napkin dispenser above them. "Stay down." Emma stared at him. "You have a gun?" Michael looked almost offended by the question. Another bullet hit the counter. He rose just enough to fire twice. A man near the entrance dropped behind a booth. Customers crawled toward the kitchen. The cook slammed the service window closed. Emma's ears rang. Michael moved along the counter with terrifying calm. He did not look frightened. He looked familiar with this. That frightened her more. The second attacker came around the far end of the counter. Emma saw him before Michael did. The man raised his weapon. Emma grabbed the first thing within reach. A full ceramic coffee pot. She hurled it. It struck the man across the temple. Coffee and porcelain exploded against his face. He staggered. Michael crossed the distance in 2 steps, caught the gunman's wrist, twisted it down, and drove him into the counter. The gun hit the floor. The man swung wildly. Michael avoided the punch, struck him once in the throat, then again across the jaw. The attacker collapsed. The first gunman appeared near the entrance. Michael turned. 1 shot. The man fell backward against the glass door. Silence came strangely. Not true silence. Someone was crying. A baby screamed in the back booth. The refrigerator hummed. A fork rolled slowly across the floor until it stopped beneath a table. Emma was still crouched behind the counter. Michael looked toward her. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. He stepped toward the fallen attacker. Emma stared at the gun in his hand, at the blood spreading across the tile, at the absence of panic in his face. "Who are you?" Michael crouched and searched the dead man's pockets. He found a phone, no identification. Then he pulled back the man's sleeve. A small tattoo marked the inside of his wrist. Michael recognized it. Emma did not. She asked again. "Who are you?" Michael stood. His eyes met hers. Michael Kane. The name landed harder than the gunshots. Emma had heard it before. Not from her mother. From people who lowered their voices when they said it. From a former co-worker whose boyfriend had borrowed money from the wrong men. From a landlord who once joked that half of South Philadelphia belonged to the Kane family and the other half was smart enough to pretend it did. Emma stared at him. "You are that Michael Kane. There is only one." She almost laughed. Nothing about the moment was funny. Her mother's words returned. "No Kanes." Emma stepped away from him. "My mother knew your name." Michael's expression sharpened. "What, this morning?" She asked if a Kane had seen the ring. Michael took 1 step closer. What exactly did she say? Emma ignored the question. "My mother." A new terror rushed through her. The men had known where she worked. If they knew that they could know where she lived. Emma grabbed her coat. Michael blocked the aisle. "Where are you going, home?" "No." She shoved his arm. "Move. If they came here, someone may already be at your apartment. My mother is there." "I know." "Then move." Michael caught her shoulders. Emma tried to pull away. "Let go of me. Listen. I said let go. If you run outside alone, you may not make it across the street. My mother is alone." Michael saw something in her face. Not fear for herself, fear of arriving too late. He released her. Then he pulled his car keys from his pocket and put them into her palm. Emma stared at them. "You drive." "What?" "You know the address better than I do." "You know my address?" Michael said nothing. Her eyes narrowed. "You investigated me." "Drive." "You are unbelievable." "Emma." She looked at the blood on the diner floor, then at the keys. "Fine." Michael followed her outside. The sedan remained parked across the street, abandoned with both front doors open. Emma got behind the wheel of Michael's SUV. Michael sat beside her. She started the engine, seatbelt. He looked at her. She glared. "I am not getting a ticket because a Mafia boss does not believe in basic safety." Michael fastened it. Emma accelerated. The SUV shot into traffic. Michael grabbed the door handle. "Do you always drive like this? My mother may be dying." He stopped talking. They reached Emma's building 8 minutes later. The front entrance stood open. Emma saw the broken lock from the sidewalk. She ran. Michael followed. On the 3rd floor, Emma stopped. Her apartment door hung crooked from one hinge. "Mom." No answer. She rushed inside. Michael caught her before she crossed the living room. "Behind me." I do not need your permission, no. You need to stay alive. He raised his gun and entered first. The living room had been destroyed, drawers overturned, cushions cut open, medication scattered across the carpet. The old cigar box lay broken beside the kitchen table. Emma stared at it. They were looking for the ring. Michael glanced at her. You still have it. She touched her coat pocket. Yes. A sound came from the hallway. Emma moved toward it. Michael stopped her with one hand. He checked the bedroom. Empty. Then the bathroom. The door was closed. There was blood on the floor near the frame. Emma stopped breathing. Mom, nothing. She pushed past Michael. He caught the bathroom handle first and opened the door. Nora sat inside the bathtub. She held a pair of kitchen scissors in both hands. Blood covered one sleeve of her nightgown. Emma cried out. Mom. Nora looked at her. For a moment she did not recognize her daughter. Then her face broke. Emma. Emma climbed into the bathroom and wrapped her arms around her. You are okay? I am here. Nora was shaking. He came inside. Who I do not know. Michael looked toward the hallway. A man lay near the bedroom doorway, barely conscious. Blood soaked his shirt near the ribs. Nora had stabbed him. Michael walked over and turned him onto his back. Recognition hit immediately. He had seen the man before, not personally, but he knew the crew. The tattoo near his collarbone belonged to a group used for warehouse security and collection work, men who had completed jobs for Kane Freight. Michael searched his pockets. A vehicle access card, a company fuel receipt, his company. Emma emerged from the bathroom helping Nora stand. Nora looked at Michael, her attention fixed on his face, then on the ring. Her eyes widened. She stepped toward him. Ethan Michael froze. Emma looked between them. Michael said softly, no. Nora reached up. Her fingers touched his cheek. You look like him. Michael did not move. You knew Ethan. Nora's eyes filled. He wanted out. Michael felt the room tighten around him. Out of what Nora looked confused, then afraid. Daniel tried to save him. Michael's voice dropped. What did you say? Nora pulled her hand away. Daniel tried. Michael stepped closer. Daniel planted the bomb. Nora shook her head. No. Emma held her mother tighter. Michael asked, who told him to do it? For one clear second, Nora looked directly into Michael's eyes. He was never the one holding the chain. Then the clarity disappeared. She frowned at him. Who are you? Michael said nothing. Emma watched his face. For the first time since meeting him, she saw something stronger than control. Confusion. They left the apartment 10 minutes later. Michael called Mason from the stairwell. I need the house on Fairmount cleared. Mason did not ask why. How many people? 3. You injured no anyone else? Michael looked toward the man Nora had stabbed. One alive. Send someone for him. Mason paused. Who hit the apartment? Michael looked at the company access card in his hand. That is what I want you to tell me. The safe house sat behind a row of restored brick homes in a quiet section near Fairmount Park. There was nothing remarkable about it from the street. That was the point. Inside, everything was reinforced. Steel frame doors, cameras, medical supplies, weapons behind locked panels Emma preferred not to look at. Nora was placed in a downstairs bedroom. A private physician arrived within 20 minutes. Emma stayed beside her until the doctor said the blood on Nora's clothes did not belong to her. Only then did Emma step into the kitchen. Michael stood at the sink washing blood from his knuckles. Emma leaned against the doorway. You killed a man 3 feet from me. Michael dried his hands. He was trying to kill you. You did not even hesitate, no. Her eyes narrowed. That is supposed to make me feel safe, no. The honesty caught her off guard. Michael turned toward her. I am not a safe man. Emma folded her arms. At least we agree on something. He placed the towel on the counter. Daniel Cross worked for my family. Emma said nothing. He was close to my brother Ethan. How close? Close enough that Ethan trusted him with his life. Emma swallowed. And Daniel killed him. That is what I have believed for 12 years. The wording mattered. Emma noticed. Believed Michael looked toward the room where Nora slept. My brother died in a car bombing. Daniel disappeared the same night. And you hunted him. Yes. To find answers, Michael remained silent. Emma understood. To kill him. His eyes returned to hers. Yes, she laughed once without humor. So my father may have been the man you spent 12 years trying to murder? Yes. And now someone in your family is trying to murder me? Yes. Emma rubbed both hands across her face. This is the worst family introduction I have ever had. Michael almost smiled. Then his phone rang. Mason, Michael answered. What did you find? Emma watched his expression change. Mason spoke for several seconds. Michael walked toward the window. Run it again. A pause. His jaw tightened. You are certain? Another pause. Michael ended the call. Emma asked, What? He did not answer immediately. She stepped closer. What did he say? Michael looked at the access card from the attacker's pocket. The sedan used by the men at the diner was registered to a logistics company, so the company belongs to us. Emma stared at him. Michael continued. The vehicle was released yesterday using internal authorization. Your people? Yes. Emma looked toward the hallway where her mother was sleeping, then back at Michael. You said somebody helped my mother disappear. Michael's eyes hardened. Maybe. And now somebody inside your family wants her dead. Michael looked down at the broken scales on his hand. For 12 years he had believed the danger had come from a man who ran away. Now the evidence was pointing in the opposite direction, not toward a ghost, toward home. The words stayed with Michael long after Emma left the kitchen. He stood alone near the window looking out across the dark trees beyond Fairmount Park. The city was hidden from this part of the house, but he could still see its glow above the rooftops. Philadelphia had always looked different from a distance. Cleaner, quieter, less honest. Michael turned the ring around his finger. For 12 years he had worn it almost every day. Not because he liked jewelry, not because he believed in symbols, because Ethan had given it to him, because Daniel Cross had worn the same one. Because after Ethan died, that small circle of gold became a reminder that loyalty could rot from the inside without changing its face. Now Michael was not sure what it reminded him of anymore. Behind him, the kitchen light clicked on. Emma entered wearing borrowed clothes from the safe house closet. Gray sweatpants, a black shirt too large for her. Her hair was tied back loosely. She looked exhausted. Michael glanced at the clock. It was almost 4 a.m. You should sleep. Emma walked toward the refrigerator. So should you. I am working. You are staring at a window. Michael looked back outside. Sometimes that is part of the work. Emma opened the refrigerator, found a bottle of water, and closed it again. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she said, You searched for my mother for 12 years. Michael turned. I searched for Daniel. She was with him. I did not know that. That is not what I mean. Emma leaned against the counter. You said your family had people everywhere. Police, courts, banks. You said Daniel could not have disappeared without leaving something behind. Yes. So how did she disappear? Michael said nothing. Emma watched him. My mother had a new name, new records, new everything. Michael's expression hardened slightly. We are looking into it. That is not an answer. No. Emma took a drink of water. What if somebody inside your family helped her vanish? Michael looked at her. You think I have not considered that I think you have spent 12 years considering one man guilty. A small silence followed. Emma continued. That changes the way you ask questions. Michael did not like the sentence because it was true. When a man believed he already knew the answer, investigation became confirmation. He had chased Daniel through Boston, Baltimore, Chicago, Cleveland, and Toronto. He had paid informants, threatened corrupt officers, bought passenger lists, broken men who had once worked with Daniel. Every lead had been built around one question. Where did Daniel run? Michael had never asked another. Who wanted Daniel to disappear? Emma stepped closer. You said someone used your company to send those men. Yes. Someone had access, yes. Someone knew where I worked. Yes. And somehow they knew about the ring after I went to the pawn shop. Michael looked at her sharply. Emma noticed. What, say that again? I went to the pawn shop. No, after that, they knew about the ring. Michael stared at her. Harold Finch. He knew the name, not well, but enough. Finch Gold and Loan had existed longer than Michael had been alive. Harold had spent decades buying jewelry guns, watches, and information from people who asked too few questions. Michael pulled out his phone. Emma watched. Who are you calling Mason? He answered immediately. You sleep. Mason sounded irritated. Apparently not. Find out who Harold Finch called today. There was a pause. The pawn shop, yes. You think he talked? I think 2 men walked into Emma's diner a few hours after she showed him Daniel's ring. Mason's voice changed. I will check. Do it quietly. Michael ended the call. Emma looked at him. Harold knew something. He knew enough to be afraid. For himself, Michael slipped the phone back into his pocket. Maybe for you. Emma shook her head. He told me to go home. That might have been guilt, or a warning. Michael said nothing. She studied him. You always assume the worst. It keeps people alive. Does it? Michael met her eyes. That question stayed between them longer than either intended. Emma eventually looked away. Your hand is bleeding again. Michael glanced down. One of the cuts across his knuckles had reopened. It is fine. Emma walked toward a cabinet. Michael frowned. What are you doing looking for the medical supplies? You do not need to. She found a small plastic case and set it on the kitchen table. Sit. Michael remained standing. Emma looked at him. You can order armed men around all day, but you are afraid of antiseptic. Michael pulled out a chair. I am not afraid of antiseptic. Good. Sit down. He did. Emma cleaned the cut with a cotton pad. Michael barely reacted. She noticed old scars across his hands. Some small, some deeper. One crossed the base of his thumb and disappeared beneath his sleeve. Emma asked, How many people have you hurt with these hands? Michael looked at her. That is not a safe question. I am beginning to think safe questions are useless around you. She continued, cleaning the wound. Michael could have lied. He did not. I do not know. Emma paused. For the first time, he saw something colder in her face. Not fear, judgment. He found it strangely easier to tolerate. You really do not know, no. Emma placed the bloody cotton on the table. And you want me to believe you are protecting us. I am protecting you. That is not the same as being good. I never said it was. She wrapped gauze around his hand. Michael watched her fingers, steady despite everything. You hate me. Emma looked up. No. The answer surprised him. She tightened the bandage. I do not know you well enough to hate you. Michael almost smiled. That might be the kindest thing anyone has said to me this week. I was not being kind. I know. Emma sat across from him. My mother called you Ethan. Michael's expression changed. Yes, she knew him, apparently. You never saw her before, no. What about Daniel? Michael leaned back. I knew Daniel for years. Emma waited. Michael could see the question she had not asked. What was my father like? He looked toward the dark hallway. Daniel was funny. Emma blinked. That was not what she expected. Michael continued. He could make Ethan laugh when nobody else could, usually at the worst possible time. Emma said nothing. He hated ties. Smoked when he was nervous, played cards badly, and accused everyone else of cheating. A faint expression moved across Emma's face. Michael noticed it. You have something of his. Would you tap your fingers against your glass when you are angry? Emma looked down. Her fingers were doing exactly that. Michael said Daniel used to do the same thing. She stopped. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Emma asked the question. Was he a bad man? Michael looked at her carefully. Yes. She swallowed. He continued. So am I. Emma did not look away. But bad men are still capable of loving people. Michael glanced toward Nora's room. Daniel kept you hidden from everyone. That means you mattered enough to him to be careful. Emma's eyes became wet, but she blinked the emotion back. You were going to kill him. Yes. If you found him. Yes. And now Michael looked at the ring. Now I want the truth. A voice came from the hallway. Then stop asking the wrong dead man. Emma stood immediately. Nora was there, barefoot, one hand pressed against the wall. Her face was pale, but her eyes were clear. Too clear. Emma crossed the room. Mom. Nora lifted a hand. I am fine. You need to lie down. No. Her gaze moved to Michael. You need to hear this while I can still say it. Michael stood slowly. Nora walked toward the kitchen table. Emma helped her into a chair. Michael sat across from her. Nora studied his face. You really do look like Ethan, Michael answered quietly. So you said. He hated that nose. Emma looked at Michael. For the first time, Michael smiled without meaning to. Everyone did. Nora's mouth trembled with something close to a smile. Then it disappeared. She looked at Emma. Stay? Emma sat beside her. Nora placed both hands on the table. Daniel planted the bomb. Emma went still. Michael did not move at all. Nora continued. He carried the package to the car. Emma whispered Mom. Nora closed her eyes. I spent years trying to find a better version of that sentence. She opened them again. There is not one. Michael's voice was controlled. Why? Because he was told the car would be empty. Michael stared at her. Nora said Daniel believed they were frightening Ethan. Who is they? Nora looked at Michael. The man above Daniel. Name him. I cannot. Michael's jaw tightened. You can. Nora's eyes flashed. You think I did not want to? She pressed a trembling hand against her chest. You think I did not spend 12 years waking up with that name in my mouth? Emma touched her shoulder. Nora breathed slowly, then continued. Daniel said Ethan had become a problem. Michael's expression darkened. To whom he would not tell me at first. What problem he wanted out. Michael frowned. Out of the family, not completely. Nora looked toward the ring. He wanted the violence gone. Michael remembered fragments. Ethan arguing about a shipment. Ethan refusing certain businesses. Ethan talking about contracts, real estate restaurants. At 23, Michael had thought his brother was becoming soft. Nora continued. Daniel said Ethan wanted to move everything legitimate. Construction, shipping, hospitality. He wanted to stop the drugs, the collections, the things that turned every street into another funeral. Emma looked at Michael. He was trying to change it. Michael answered without looking at her. Yes. Nora said Daniel believed the bomb was supposed to destroy an empty car. A warning. They wanted Ethan scared enough to step away. Michael's eyes turned cold, but Ethan was inside. Nora nodded. Someone changed the timing. Silence filled the kitchen. Michael leaned forward. How did Daniel know he saw Ethan get into the car? Nora's voice cracked. He tried to reach him. Michael's breathing changed. Daniel was there. Yes. Nora looked at Emma. He came home after midnight, blood on his shirt, glass in his hair. Her eyes drifted. The kitchen disappeared from her face. For a moment she was somewhere else. 12 years earlier. Rain against a different window. A lock turning hard. Daniel stumbling through the door. Nora. His voice was broken. She looked up from the couch. Young Emma slept beneath a blanket. Daniel was covered in dust. What happened? We have to go. Nora stood. Daniel. Now. He walked to Emma, knelt, and stared at her sleeping face. Nora grabbed his arm. What happened? Daniel turned. He looked like a man who had watched the world end and knew he helped build the weapon. Ethan is dead. Nora covered her mouth. Daniel reached into his coat. The ring, the cigar box. He shoved both into her hands. You take Emma. You leave Philadelphia tonight. What did you do? Daniel looked away. Daniel, I carried it. Nora stared at him. What, the bomb? Her face emptied. Daniel began to cry. Not loudly. That made it worse. I was told he would not be there. Nora stepped away. You killed him. I lit the match. He looked at her. Someone else poured the gasoline. Nora remembered packing clothes into a suitcase while Daniel paced the apartment. He gave her new identification, cash, a bus ticket, a name, Nora Reed. She asked who created it. Daniel said, someone who thinks I am still useful. Who? Daniel shook his head. If I tell you, you will never be able to say you did not know. Nora grabbed his shirt. You are sending me away with our daughter, and you still think you can protect me by lying. Daniel looked at Emma. No. His voice broke. I am protecting her. He put the ring into the cigar box, then a packet of papers. Keep this. What is it? Insurance. Against who? Daniel looked toward the door. Everyone. Back in the safe house kitchen, Nora wiped tears from her face. Emma sat motionless. Michael looked like stone. Nora whispered, that was the last night I saw him. Emma finally spoke. What happened to him? Nora looked at her daughter. I do not know exactly. Emma's face tightened. You said he died. I know because he stopped contacting me. That does not mean he died. Nora nodded slowly. He had a code. Michael looked at her. What code? If he was alive, money would arrive on the first day of every month. Never from the same bank, never under the same name. How long? 3 weeks, Emma swallowed. Nora said the final payment came before we even reached our second apartment. Michael understood. Daniel had been allowed to disappear. Then someone killed him. Emma asked, "Why did they let you live?" Nora looked at the cigar box resting on a shelf across the room. "Because they thought I knew nothing." Michael followed her gaze. "Did you not then?" Nora stood. Emma immediately reached for her. "Mom, the box." Emma brought it to the table. The corner had been damaged when the attackers searched the apartment, but the main body remained intact. Nora touched the wood. "Daniel told me the truth was under what we remember." Michael opened it. Photographs, letters, old documents. Nothing hidden. He removed everything, checked beneath the lining. Nothing. Nora frowned. "I know he said it." Michael turned the box over. No seam. Emma picked up the old photograph. It showed Nora beside a younger Daniel. His face had been torn away years earlier. Emma flipped it over. There was writing on the back. 3 words, "Under the family." Michael stared at it. Nora whispered Daniel wrote that. Michael studied the bottom of the box again. Emma looked at the photograph, then at the wood beneath it. She slid a fingernail along the inner edge. A small gap. Wait. Michael looked up. Emma took a butter knife from the counter and pushed the tip beneath the wooden panel. It lifted. A false floor. Beneath it sat a thin black notebook wrapped in waxed paper. Michael stopped breathing. Emma removed it carefully. Beside the notebook were several folded pages. One was a copy of Emma's original birth certificate. Father, Daniel Cross. Emma stared at the name. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Nora reached for her hand. Emma did not pull away. Michael opened the black notebook. Rows of numbers. Dates, vehicle numbers, initials, payments. Mason arrived 20 minutes later. He walked into the kitchen, saw the documents, and stopped. "What am I looking at?" Michael handed him the ledger. "Daniel's insurance." Mason sat. For the next hour, they worked through it. Some entries were simple. Payments to city officials, cash movements, vehicle purchases. Others were coded. Mason photographed each page. Emma sat beside Nora reading Daniel's old letters. Most were short. Some were never sent. One was addressed to Emma. She opened it with shaking fingers. "Sweetheart, if you ever read this, I probably failed at more things than I managed to fix." Emma stopped. Nora covered her mouth. Emma continued silently. Michael watched her but did not ask. Mason turned another page. "Here." Michael moved closer. "What, these payments begin 4 months before Ethan died?" Mason pointed to an abbreviation. VKH. Michael said nothing. Mason continued. "Could be anything." Michael knew better. Victor Kane Holdings, an old corporate name Victor used before Kane Freight absorbed most of his companies. Michael leaned closer. The numbers matched several vehicle purchases. One of them was the car Daniel had used the night Ethan died. Emma saw Michael's face. "What is it?" Michael did not answer. Mason turned another page. Another payment. Same initials. Then another. After the bombing, the payments changed. They went to a county records clerk, a hospital administrator, a driver's license office, Nora Reed's identity, Emma Reed's school transfer. The dates lined up. Emma whispered, "Someone inside your family did help us disappear." Michael looked at the ledger. "Yes." Emma stared at him. Why, Michael's voice was low. "To control where Daniel ran." Nora closed her eyes. "He said someone thought he was still useful." Mason nodded. "They needed him alive long enough to take the blame cleanly." Emma looked sick. And after that, Michael knew. "They killed him." Nora began crying quietly. Emma wrapped an arm around her. Mason kept reading. Then he stopped again. "There is a letter." He pulled a folded page from the back of the notebook. The front contained 2 words. Michael Kane. Michael took it. He did not open it immediately. The handwriting was Daniel's. He remembered seeing it on betting slips, restaurant tabs, inventory sheets. For 12 years, he had imagined what he would say if Daniel ever stood in front of him. He had never imagined Daniel speaking first. Michael unfolded the paper. "Michael, if Nora gives you this, then either I am dead or I finally became brave enough to stop running. I do not deserve your forgiveness. I carried the bomb. I believed the lie. That is mine. But Ethan was not killed because I hated him. He was killed because he wanted to change the family. He believed the Kane name could survive without fear. The man who ordered it believed fear was the only thing keeping the Kane name alive. Michael stopped reading. His eyes moved toward the next paragraph. I trusted him because Ethan trusted him. Ethan trusted him because he was blood. That was our mistake. Michael's hand tightened around the paper. Emma watched him. Mason did not move. Michael continued. If you survive long enough to find the truth, remember what Ethan used to say. Violence always makes another heir. Do not become the reason someone else spends their life looking for revenge. Daniel Cross. The kitchen was silent. Emma was the first to speak. He does not name him. Michael folded the letter. He did not need to. Mason looked at the ledger. Michael. Michael turned. Mason had opened one of the transfer records. The authorization signature was faint. Old, but legible. Victor Kane. Michael stared at it. A dozen memories came back at once. Victor putting a hand on his shoulder at Ethan's funeral. Victor telling him to eat. Victor finding him drunk in a warehouse 3 weeks later. Victor saying Daniel Cross would pay. Victor teaching Michael how to negotiate, how to threaten, how to lead, how to survive. Victor telling him that grief was useless unless you turned it into purpose. Daniel had been that purpose. Emma stood. Michael. He walked away from the table. She followed him into the backyard. Cold air hit them immediately. Snow had begun falling, small flakes disappearing against the dark grass. Michael stopped beneath a bare tree. Emma stayed several feet behind him. He said Victor raised me after Ethan died. Emma said nothing. He taught me everything. Michael looked toward the city lights. How to run the businesses, how to deal with captains, how to know when a man was lying. Emma stepped closer. And he was lying to you. For 12 years. Michael laughed once. There was nothing warm in it. I spent 7 years looking for your father, Emma answered carefully. My father still helped kill Ethan. Michael turned. She held his gaze. I am not asking you to forgive him. Michael studied her. Emma continued. But somebody made sure you hated the right man for the wrong reason. That sentence hit harder than accusation. Michael looked away. I built my life around it. Around revenge. Around being the man Ethan's death required. Emma said maybe it never required that man. Michael's expression hardened. You do not know what it required. No. She moved closer. But I know what it cost. Michael looked at her. She glanced toward the house. My mother has been running for 12 years, then back at him. You have been hunting for 12 years. A pause, different directions, same prison. Michael said nothing. Emma reached for his injured hand. She did not hold it tightly, just enough for him to feel another person was there. Michael looked down at her fingers over his bandage. I do not know if anything in my life was ever mine. Emma answered quietly. Then decide what is yours now. For several seconds, Michael did not move. Then his phone buzzed. Mason, Michael answered. We confirmed the records. Michael closed his eyes. Mason continued. Victor signed the original holding accounts. The shell company that released the diner vehicle traces through 2 layers, but the final controller is one of his trusts. Michael looked toward Emma. Anyone else know? No. Keep it that way. What are you going to do? Michael looked at the snow falling between the houses. Call my uncle. He returned inside. The kitchen had become quieter. Nora was resting in the next room. Mason stood beside the table. Michael dialed Victor. Victor answered almost immediately. Michael, his voice was warm, familiar. Michael stared at Daniel's letter. Dinner tonight? A small pause. Dinner, yes. Victor chuckled. Is something wrong? Michael looked toward Emma. She watched him from across the room. No. He let the silence sit. I think I finally understand my brother. Victor said nothing. It lasted less than a second, but Michael heard it. Then Victor replied, Then we should definitely talk. Michael ended the call. Mason looked at him. That was too easy. Yes. Emma stepped closer. What does that mean? Michael placed the phone on the table. It means he knows. Across Philadelphia, Victor Kane sat alone in his office. The city spread below him through floor-to-ceiling glass. He kept the phone against his ear for several seconds after the call ended. Then he set it down. On his desk sat the old photograph of Ethan, Michael, and Daniel. Victor picked it up. His thumb covered Daniel's face first, then Ethan's. He stared at Michael. A knock came at the door. 2 men entered. Victor placed the photograph face down. "Bring me Nora Reed." One of the men nodded, and the girl Victor looked toward the window. The girl, too. The second man asked, "What about Michael?" Victor remained quiet. For 12 years, Michael had been more than a nephew. He had been Victor's greatest achievement. A grieving boy sharpened into a weapon taught to believe that every cut had purpose. Victor poured himself a drink. "If Michael chooses them over his family," he said, "then he has already made his choice." The men waited. Victor lifted the glass. His voice became cold. "Do not bring him back." Michael knew Victor too well to mistake silence for hesitation. When Victor Kane stopped talking, it usually meant the decision had already been made. The safe house felt different after the phone call. Not louder, not colder, just smaller. Every locked door suddenly seemed less secure. Every camera seemed like something that could fail. Every window became a place where a rifle scope might appear. Mason stood over the kitchen table with the ledger open in front of him. "We move them now." Michael looked toward the hallway. Emma was helping Nora back into bed. "No." Mason stared at him. "No, Victor knows we are moving." "Exactly. If we put them in a car, we make them easier to track. So we keep them here while Victor sends half the city." Michael looked at the security monitor. "This house was built to hold." Mason lowered his voice. "It was built to hold against enemies who did not know who paid for the walls." Michael understood. Victor had helped choose the contractors. Victor knew Kane properties. Victor knew emergency routes. Victor knew how Michael thought because Victor had spent 12 years teaching him how to think. Emma entered the kitchen. She had heard enough. "Who is coming?" Michael looked at her. "We do not know." "That is not an answer. It is the truth." She folded her arms. "You called him." "Yes, and he knows you know." "Yes! And now you're standing here pretending this house is normal." Michael said nothing. Emma glanced at Mason. Mason looked away. That told her everything. She stepped closer to Michael. "You need to tell me what happens now." Michael's expression hardened. "You and Nora leave. You just told Mason that was dangerous." "It is." "Then why are we leaving? Because you are not staying near me when I meet Victor." Emma stared at him. "You are going to meet him?" "Yes, to talk." Michael did not answer. Emma gave a humorless laugh. "You really think I do not know what that means anymore?" Michael looked toward the hallway. "Nora is sick. You have been shot at twice in one day. I am not asking you to understand this. No, you are asking me to disappear. I am asking you to survive." Emma stepped closer. "Those are not always the same thing." Michael's eyes narrowed. "You think staying near me is safer, no? Then what are we discussing? You do not get to decide everything because you are afraid." The room went still. Mason looked at Michael. Nobody spoke to Michael Kane that way. Not anymore. Michael's voice lowered. "I am not afraid." Emma looked directly into his eyes. "Yes, you are." He took one slow step toward her. Emma did not move. "You are afraid that if I stay, Victor can use me." Michael said nothing. "You are afraid that if my mother stays, he can use her." Still nothing. "And you are afraid that if something happens to us, you will have another person to bury because of your family." Michael's jaw tightened. Emma continued. "So you are trying to control the only part you think you can control." Mason quietly left the kitchen. Michael noticed. He did not stop him. Emma lowered her voice. "I understand why. You do not." "I understand enough." Michael looked away. Emma said, "You are going to kill him." Michael turned back. "I am going to end this. That is not the same sentence." "No." "Then say it." Michael was silent. Emma waited. Finally he said, "If Victor admits what he did, I do not know what I will do." Emma's expression softened, but only slightly. "That is the first honest thing you have said about tonight." Michael looked at the ledger. "He killed my brother. He used my father. Yes, he hunted my mother. Yes, he sent men after me. Yes." Emma took a breath. "And if you kill him, does any of that stop being true?" Michael looked at her. "No. Then do not lie to yourself and call revenge repair." The word struck something he did not want touched. Michael turned away. Emma watched his shoulders stiffen. She had seen him angry. She had seen him violent. This was different. He was listening. Michael said quietly, "Ethan used to say things like that." Emma walked closer. "You hated it usually. Why?" "Because he was usually right." A small silence passed between them. Then the lights went out. Every room dropped into darkness. Michael moved before Emma could react. He grabbed her arm and pulled her away from the window. Down. A second later, the security alarm chirped once, then died. Mason appeared in the doorway with a flashlight in one hand and a pistol in the other. "Backup power is not coming on." Michael looked toward the ceiling. "That is impossible," Mason said. "Not if someone knows where the secondary line enters." A burst of gunfire tore through the front windows. Glass exploded across the living room. Emma dropped behind the counter. Michael drew his weapon. Mason moved toward the hall. 3 vehicles outside, rear. 2 men near the alley. Michael looked at Emma. "Get Nora downstairs." Emma nodded. No argument this time. She ran. Michael followed her to the hall. Emma stopped. "You are coming to the basement door. I can get her. I know." That answer mattered. He was not telling her she was helpless. He was making sure she reached the safest part of the house. They entered Nora's room. Nora woke frightened by the gunfire. "What is happening?" Emma took her hands. "Mom, we have to move." Nora looked toward Michael. Daniel Michael said no. Nora, her face changed. For 1 second she knew him. "Michael, yes." "Is it him?" Michael did not ask who she meant. "Yes." Nora nodded as if she had been waiting 12 years for that answer. Emma helped her stand. Michael opened the hidden basement door. "There is a reinforced room at the bottom. Stay inside until Mason or I come for you." Emma looked at him. "What if neither of you come?" Michael met her eyes. "Then there is a second exit behind the water heater. It leads into the next building." Emma stared at him. "You already planned for that." "I plan for everything." Another burst of gunfire hit the house. Michael looked toward the hall. "Go." Emma led Nora down the stairs. Michael waited until the steel door closed. Then he turned back toward the gunfire. Mason met him near the living room. Front sensors are gone. Side entrance, still holding. A window broke in the rear. Michael moved toward their kitchen. 2 men climbed through almost together. Mason fired first. The first attacker fell across the sill. The second rolled behind the table. Michael fired through the chair beside him. The man dropped. Mason looked at the shattered window. "They know the layout." Michael checked his magazine. "Victor knows the layout." The front door shook under a heavy impact, once, twice, then stopped. Mason looked toward the security monitor. One camera flickered back to life. A man stood outside with a cutting tool. Mason cursed. "They brought equipment." Michael said Victor does not want us trapped. Mason looked at him. "What, he wants me moving? Why, so he controls where I go." The front door buckled. Michael looked toward the basement. Victor wanted Michael angry. He wanted him to leave the house, chase the attack back to its source, and abandon Emma and Nora. That was exactly what Michael would have done 12 years earlier. Maybe even yesterday. Mason seemed to read his face. "You know where Victor is?" "Yes, you could leave through the alley." Michael looked at him. Mason added, "I can hold here." Michael almost answered. Then Daniel's letter returned to him. Violence always makes another heir. He looked at the basement door. "No." Mason frowned. "No, we finish this here first." The front door broke open. Michael and Mason took positions. 3 men entered. The first went down immediately. The second fired blindly toward the hall. Mason returned fire. The third moved into the living room and disappeared behind a support wall. Michael circled through the kitchen. He heard footsteps. Then nothing. A man stepped from the dark. Michael drove his shoulder into him before the gun came up. They hit the floor. The man was larger than Michael. Stronger, but strength mattered less in a confined room. Michael trapped the gun arm, drove an elbow into the man's throat, then slammed his wrist against the floor until the weapon came loose. The man reached for a knife. Michael caught his hand. For a second they struggled in silence. Then Michael drove the man into the wall, hard. The attacker collapsed. Michael kicked the knife away. From the hallway, Mason shouted, "Michael!" A gunshot followed. Michael turned. Mason stood over another attacker. Blood ran from Mason's shoulder. You hit grazed. Michael moved toward him. Mason waved him off. I can still shoot. Another sound came from below. A door slamming. Michael's face changed. He ran toward the basement. The reinforced door was open. Emma. No answer. He took the stairs 2 at a time. At the bottom, the storage room was empty. Michael's chest tightened. Then he heard a crash from the utility room. He turned the corner. Emma stood near the pantry entrance holding a fire extinguisher. A man staggered in front of her, white powder covering his face and coat. His pistol lay on the floor. Emma swung the extinguisher again. The metal cylinder hit his shoulder. He went down. Michael crossed the room and kicked the gun away. Emma was breathing hard. Her hands shook. Michael looked at the man. He recognized the face, not by name, by family. The attacker was Harold Finch's nephew. He had once worked collections for one of Victor's companies. Michael looked at Emma. Where is Nora inside the utility room? You okay? Emma nodded, then shook her head. I do not know. Michael stepped closer. She looked at the man on the floor. He told me I should have left the ring buried. Michael's expression darkened. He came through the second exit. Emma looked at him. The one you said was safe. Michael understood immediately. Victor knew about that too. Emma stared at his face. He knew every exit. Yes, he knew every room. Yes. She swallowed. You really did learn everything from him. Michael looked toward the stairs. Yes. For the first time, the sentence sounded like a confession. When the last gunman surrendered 15 minutes later, the house looked as if a storm had passed through it. Broken windows, blood on the hardwood, bullet holes in walls Michael had once considered secure. Mason sat at the kitchen table while a loyal medic wrapped his shoulder. Emma stayed with Nora. Michael stood outside beneath the back porch. His phone rang. Victor. Michael answered. You always were stubborn. Victor sounded calm, almost amused. Michael looked at the dark yard. You sent men into a house with a sick woman. Victor sighed. I sent men to clean up a mistake. You mean Emma? I mean Daniel. Michael's face hardened. Victor continued. Daniel was supposed to die 12 years ago with everything he knew. He did die, not quickly enough. Michael looked toward the broken window. Did you kill him? A pause. Yes. Michael closed his eyes. Victor said he lasted 3 weeks after the bombing, longer than I expected. Where is he buried? Does it matter to his daughter? Victor was silent. Michael's voice dropped. Where Victor finally answered. Near an old quarry outside Reading. Michael stored the information away. Victor continued. You are making this personal. Michael almost laughed. You killed Ethan. I saved the family. You used Daniel. I used a man weak enough to be used. And me. The silence on the line changed. Michael waited. Victor answered carefully. You were grieving. That was not my question. Victor's voice became colder. You needed direction. Michael stared into the darkness. You gave me Daniel. I gave you purpose. You built my life around a lie. No. Victor sounded almost offended. I built your life around something useful. Michael said nothing. Victor continued. You were 23, angry, reckless. You would have gotten yourself killed in 6 months. So you pointed me at a ghost. I pointed you forward. You made me into a weapon. Victor laughed softly. No, Michael. You were always capable of becoming what you became. The words cut deeper because part of Michael believed them. Victor added, I simply taught you how to survive being it. Michael looked through the window. Emma was helping Nora drink water. He remembered Emma saying that revenge and repair were not the same thing. Victor said, Come to the club. Michael's expression did not change. You think I am stupid enough to walk into your building. I think you are angry enough. Michael almost smiled. Victor knew the old Michael, not the man standing there now. What do you want to end the confusion? You mean kill me, if that is what you choose. Michael looked toward Mason. Mason was already watching him. Give me 20 minutes. Victor said, Come alone. The call ended. Mason walked outside. You are not going alone. Yes, I am. Michael, you need to stay here. Mason looked toward the damaged house. Victor knows this location. He already used his best advantage. You do not know that. Michael turned to him. I know he expects me to bring you. Mason frowned. He wants the house weaker. Mason understood. Michael continued. You stay with them, and if this is a trap, it is. Mason stared at him. That is not reassuring. Michael looked back through the window. Emma stood inside. She was already looking at him. He entered the house. Emma waited near the kitchen. You are leaving. Yes, for Victor, yes. She nodded once. Then asked, Are you going because you have to or because you want to? Michael stopped. I do not know if there is a difference anymore. There is. He looked at her. Emma walked closer. If you go there only to kill him, then he still decides who you are. Michael's face hardened. He killed my brother. I know. He killed your father. I know. He tried to kill you tonight. I was there. Michael looked away. Emma reached for his wounded hand. You stayed. He looked down at her fingers. When the house was attacked, you could have gone after him. I almost did, but you stayed. Michael said nothing. Emma continued. You chose us before revenge. He looked at her. Do not forget that when you walk into that room. For several seconds neither moved. Then Michael lifted her hand from his. Not to push it away. He held it for one brief moment. I cannot promise what happens. I am not asking you to. What are you asking? Emma looked at him. Come back as yourself. Michael almost asked which version that was. He did not. He left. The Kane Social Club sat behind an unmarked door on a narrow street near the river. Michael had entered that building for the first time when he was 14. His father had taken him upstairs, sat him in a corner, and told him never to repeat anything he heard. Ethan had been there. Victor had been there. Men long dead had filled the room with cigarette smoke and arguments about money. Now the street outside was empty. Too empty. Michael parked 1 block away. He approached on foot. No one stopped him at the entrance. That confirmed Victor wanted him inside. The lower floor was dark. The old bar remained lit. A half-finished glass sat on the counter. Michael moved toward the stairs. At the top, the private room door stood open. Victor sat alone at Ethan's old table. 2 glasses of bourbon waited between them. Victor looked up. You came. Michael entered. You knew I would. Victor smiled. I hoped. Michael remained standing. Victor nodded toward the empty chair. Sit. No, you always hated patience. You always mistook obedience for patience. Victor's smile faded slightly. He poured bourbon into the second glass anyway. You look exactly like Ethan when you are disappointed. Michael looked around the room. Old photographs covered the walls. 3 generations of Kane men. Weddings, funerals, restaurants, groundbreakings, men smiling beside politicians who later claimed they had never met them. Michael looked back at Victor. Why Victor did not pretend not to understand. Because Ethan was going to destroy us. He wanted legitimate businesses. He wanted weakness. He wanted out of narcotics, yes. He wanted to end collections, yes. He wanted to stop bribing police. Victor laughed. He wanted to become a businessman. He was a businessman. He was a Kane. Michael stepped closer. Victor leaned back. You were too young to understand what was happening. Then explain it. Victor's expression changed. Now he looked almost grateful, as if he had waited 12 years for someone to ask. Your brother thought we could simply stop. Victor spread his hands. No more drugs. No more street money. No more pressure on contractors. No more protection payments. Michael said nothing. Victor continued. He thought we could close those doors and everyone would politely accept it. He had a plan. He had fantasies. Victor stood. Rival crews were already testing us. Our own captains thought Ethan was weak. Men who had spent 30 years earning for this family were being told they had to become restaurant managers and warehouse supervisors. He wanted them alive. They wanted power. Victor stepped closer. Power does not disappear because a good man decides it is ugly. Michael stared at him. So you killed him. Victor did not flinch. I removed a leader who was going to collapse the organization. He was your nephew. So are you. Michael's voice lowered. That did not stop you from sending men to kill me. Victor looked genuinely saddened. You stopped behaving like my blood the moment you chose that girl over this family? Michael almost laughed. There it is. What the lie? Victor frowned. You keep calling this family. Michael looked around the room. This is not family. Victor's face hardened. This organization fed hundreds of people. It buried hundreds too. Necessary costs. Michael looked at him. Ethan said the same thing Daniel wrote. Victor's eyes shifted. That was the first true sign of discomfort. Michael took Daniel's letter from his coat. Victor stared at it. You should have burned that. Michael placed it on the table. You should have killed the truth better. Victor's jaw tightened. Michael continued. You used Daniel because he trusted you. Yes, you told him the car would be empty. Yes, you changed the timer. Yes, the admissions came without shame. Michael felt something inside him become strangely calm. You watched Ethan die. Victor looked at him. I watched the future survive. Michael's hand curled. Victor saw it. You think I enjoyed it? I do not care. I loved Ethan. Michael's eyes flashed. No. Victor raised his voice for the first time. I loved him enough to know he could not lead. Michael stepped closer. You loved control. Victor stared back. Someone had to have it. And after Ethan died, you chose me, yes. Why, Victor's expression softened. Because you were stronger. Michael shook his head. No. Victor frowned. You did not choose me because I was stronger. Michael moved closer. You chose me because I was broken. Victor said nothing. You gave me Daniel because anger made me easy. Victor's silence confirmed it. Michael continued. You gave me captains to command, men to punish, enemies to hunt. Every time I started asking what Ethan really wanted, you gave me another fire to put out. Victor's face became colder. I made you. Michael looked at him. That may be the last mistake you ever admit. Victor sat again. Then he smiled. Kill me then. Michael did not move. Victor pushed the second bourbon toward him. Come on. Michael stared at the glass. Victor continued. You crossed the city with a gun. You came alone. You want this. Michael looked at his own hand, at the ring. Victor said, Do not pretend you are Ethan now. Michael slowly removed the ring. Victor watched. Michael placed it on the table between them. The broken scales caught the light. Victor frowned. What are you doing? Michael looked at the ring. I finally remembered what this meant. Victor laughed. Jewelry. A promise. Victor's expression changed. Michael said Ethan gave it to us before he died. I know. No. You knew he gave us rings. Michael looked at him. You never understood why. Victor said nothing. Michael continued. He thought broken men could build something better. Victor smiled with contempt. And look where that belief got him. Michael lifted his eyes. It got me here. A long silence. Victor reached slowly toward his jacket. Michael saw it. Do not. Victor smiled. You are hesitating. His hand disappeared inside the coat. Michael moved. Victor drew first. The shot exploded across the room. Pain tore across Michael's side. Michael fired once. Victor stumbled backward. The gun dropped from his hand. He collapsed against the chair. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Michael pressed one hand against his bleeding side. Victor looked down at the dark stain spreading across his shirt. Then he laughed weakly. You think killing me makes you different? Michael approached slowly. Victor looked up. Michael's gun remained in his hand. Victor waited for the second shot. It never came. Michael said, No. Victor's smile returned. Michael continued. What I do after does. Victor's expression changed. For the first time that night, he looked uncertain. Michael lowered the gun. Victor Kane died staring at a nephew he no longer understood. Michael stood beside the table until Victor stopped breathing. Then he looked at the ring. He picked it up, placed it back on his finger, and walked out. Mason was waiting when Michael returned to the safe house. He saw the blood first. Victor dead. Mason looked at Michael's side. You are hit, grazed. That is more blood than a graze. Michael ignored him. What is happening? Mason hesitated. Victor's people know. How his driver found him. Michael nodded. Mason continued. 3 captains are already calling. 2 want to know who is in charge. And the 3rd wants to know whether they should start shooting. Michael walked into the kitchen. Emma stood when she saw him. Her eyes moved to the blood on his shirt. She did not run to him. She waited. Michael looked at Mason. Freeze the accounts. Mason frowned. Which accounts all narcotics money? Mason stared. Michael continued. Collections too. Michael. Protection rackets, illegal gambling routes, anything Ethan marked for closure in those old proposals. Mason looked at him as if he had misheard. If we shut those down tonight, we lose half the captains. Then we lose them. We lose millions. Yes, we could lose territory. Michael looked at him. Good. Mason stopped. Michael said, no one fights over something we no longer want. Mason shook his head slowly. This family will split. Michael looked at the ring. It already did 12 years ago. Emma stepped closer. Is Victor dead? Michael looked at her. Yes. She studied his face. Did it fix anything? Michael could have lied. He did not. No. Emma nodded. Michael looked toward Nora's room, then at the shattered windows, then back at Emma. But for the first time, I know what I have to fix. Emma looked at Michael for a long moment after he said it. For the first time, I know what I have to fix. There was blood on his shirt. Broken glass covered the floor behind him. Somewhere upstairs, Mason was speaking quietly into a phone, trying to stop half of the Kane organization from tearing itself apart before sunrise. Nothing about the room looked repaired. Nothing about Michael did either. Emma stepped closer. You need a doctor. Michael glanced at the blood near his ribs. It is not deep. That is not what I said. I have had worse. Emma stared at him. Do you ever answer the actual question sometimes? Tonight would be a good time to start. Michael almost smiled. The expression disappeared when pain pulled across his side. Emma noticed. Sit down. I'm fine. Michael. He looked at her. She pointed toward the chair. Sit. He did. This time he did not argue. The doctor who had examined Nora returned to the kitchen and cut Michael's shirt open along the side. Victor's bullet had passed through the outer flesh below his ribs. Painful, bloody, not fatal. Emma stayed while the wound was cleaned. Michael noticed her looking at the scar tissue across his torso. Older bullets, knife wounds, one long white line beneath his shoulder. He said, You do not have to stay. I know. The same answer she had given him hours earlier. She stayed anyway. By morning, Victor Kane's death had spread through Philadelphia. Not publicly, not yet. There was no breaking news report. No television cameras outside the social club. Men like Victor did not make the news when they died. They made phone calls happen. By 7 in the morning, Michael had received 23. Captains, lawyers, business partners. Men who offered loyalty before asking who had won. Men who offered condolences while calculating whether Michael looked weak. Men who wanted permission to retaliate. Michael gave none. He sat at the kitchen table with Mason while Emma listened from the doorway. Close the collection offices, Michael said. Mason rubbed his injured shoulder. Already moving, every one. I heard you the first time. Anything Victor controlled directly gets frozen until we know who still answers to him. Mason looked down at a list. North warehouses, legitimate shipments continue. Sportsbooks closed, street loans closed. Mason looked up. That is going to hurt people. Michael understood what he meant. Not customers, Kane men. Men whose income existed because someone else could not pay. Michael said, Then give them work in freight construction restaurants. If they refuse, they leave. Mason stared at him. You really mean it? Yes, you know some of them are not going to walk away quietly, I know. And if they come for you. Michael looked toward Emma. She was standing beside Nora's door. He answered, Then they come for me. Emma's expression hardened. Michael corrected himself. They do not come near anyone else. Mason gave a tired laugh. That is not exactly a plan. It is enough for today. Mason closed the folder. There is one more thing. Michael waited. The quarry. Emma stepped into the kitchen. Michael looked at her. Mason continued. I sent 2 men I trust. Emma's breathing changed. Michael stood. They found something. Mason nodded. Human remains. Emma stopped. Nora's bedroom door was partly open behind her. For 12 years, Daniel Cross had existed as a missing name. A torn face in a photograph. A secret her mother could not always remember. A man Michael wanted to kill. Now there was a place. Emma looked at Michael. Is it him? We do not know yet. Mason answered carefully. There was a watch buried with the body. He looked at Michael. You recognized it in one of the photographs. Michael remembered. Daniel had worn the same silver watch for years. Ethan once tried to buy him a better one. Daniel refused because Nora had given it to him. Michael looked at Emma. It is probably him. Emma nodded. She did not cry. Not immediately. She walked into Nora's room and closed the door. Michael stayed where he was. Every instinct told him to follow. He did not. Emma had spent years taking care of everyone around her. Her mother, patients at work, customers in the diner. Now she needed a moment that belonged only to her. Michael let her have it. 3 hours later, Emma found him alone in the backyard. The snow had stopped. Morning sunlight reflected from the rooftops. Michael stood without a coat staring at his phone. Emma said, "You are going to freeze." He put the phone away. "How is Nora sleeping? Did you tell her no?" Emma walked beside him. "I do not know what version of her will wake up." Michael understood. Some mornings Nora remembered Philadelphia. Other mornings she believed Emma was still 10. Some days Daniel was dead. Some days he was at work. Emma looked at Michael. "Were you there when my father bought that watch?" Michael shook his head. "No, but I remember him wearing it. What was he like when he was happy?" Michael thought about the question. No one had asked him that about Daniel before. People asked what kind of soldier Daniel had been, whether he could shoot, whether he could lie, whether he betrayed Ethan. Emma was asking about happiness. Michael said, "Loud." She smiled faintly. He laughed loudly. At everything. "What else?" He sang badly. Emma looked surprised. Michael continued. He knew every word to old soul songs and none of the notes. Emma laughed softly. Michael looked at her. The sound felt strange in a morning full of death. Good, but strange. Emma asked, "Did Ethan like him?" "Yes." Really, Michael nodded. They fought constantly. That does not sound like liking someone. With Ethan it did. Emma looked toward the distant city. "My father helped kill your brother." Michael said nothing. She continued. "I keep trying to make him either a good man or a bad man." Michael turned toward her. He was both. Emma looked at him. "So are you?" Michael did not answer quickly. Yes. The word was simple. Emma seemed to appreciate that. No defense. No excuse. Michael said Daniel did something terrible. He also loved you. Those things do not cancel each other. Emma lowered her gaze. "I wish they did." "So do I." She looked back at him. Michael added, "Life would be easier. Your life has never looked easy. It has been organized. That is not the same thing." Michael almost smiled. "No." 2 weeks passed. Philadelphia did not collapse, but the Kane organization changed almost every day. 2 captains left the city. One tried to move money before Michael froze his accounts. Another refused to close a narcotics route and discovered that the trucks he depended on no longer arrived. Mason spent most nights sleeping in his office. Michael spent his days meeting lawyers, accountants, contractors, and men who had once expected meetings to include guns. Some businesses survived, others disappeared. Kane Freight stayed open. Construction stayed open. 3 restaurants stayed open. A hotel Victor had quietly owned was transferred into a legitimate company. Street operations closed one by one, not peacefully, not cleanly. One warehouse was burned. A longtime soldier was shot outside his home. Michael attended the hospital himself. The man looked at him from the bed and asked, "Was this worth it?" Michael did not know how to answer. So he did not. There were no speeches, no grand announcements, only decisions. Some cost money, some cost loyalty, some cost blood. Michael signed each one anyway. Emma and Nora moved out of the safe house after 9 days. Michael arranged a secure apartment near Nora's doctor's. Emma refused it. "No." Michael stared at her across his office. "No, it belongs to you. It belongs to a company. You own the company, yes, so it belongs to you." Michael leaned back. "You need somewhere secure. I need somewhere I can pay for. You cannot afford one with proper security." Emma folded her arms. "Then find one I can afford." Michael studied her. Most people negotiated with him by asking for more. Emma negotiated by refusing what she considered too much. It remained confusing. "What about Nora? She is my responsibility." Michael's expression hardened. "No," Emma frowned. "No, she is not only your responsibility." Emma stared at him. Michael opened the ledger on his desk. Daniel had money. What accounts? Victor never found. He pushed several papers toward her. Emma did not touch them. "How much enough?" "That is not a number." 480,000. Emma stared. Michael continued. Some of it moved through old insurance structures. Some was cash converted into bonds. Mason found the records in Daniel's ledger. Emma looked at the documents. My father left this, yes. Why did my mother never use it? She probably did not know how to reach it. Emma sat down slowly. Michael said the money belongs to Nora. Legally, after probate, some of it belongs to you. Emma looked suspicious. You are not adding anything. No. Michael, I am not. She studied his face for signs of deception. He looked offended. Emma asked, You swear I do not swear often. Try. Michael sighed. I swear. Emma finally touched the papers. This can pay for her treatment. Yes, and the debt. Yes. Emma's eyes filled. She looked down immediately. Michael looked away, giving her privacy without leaving. After a moment, Emma whispered, She spent years choosing which medicine to buy. Michael said nothing. She skipped appointments because she thought I did not know. Michael's jaw tightened. Emma looked at the numbers again. All this time it was hidden. She wiped her face. I hate him for that. Daniel, yes. Then she shook her head. No, I do not know. I hate everyone. Michael understood that too. You are allowed. Emma looked at him. You always give very strange comfort. I have limited experience. That made her laugh despite herself. Nora moved into a memory care residence outside the city a week later. It was quiet. Small gardens, wide windows, nurses who knew how to speak to her when she woke afraid. Emma visited every day. Michael stayed away at first. Then, one afternoon, Nora asked for him. Emma called. He arrived 40 minutes later. Nora sat near a window watching birds gather around a feeder. When Michael entered, she looked at him. Ethan. Michael paused. Then Nora shook her head. No. Her eyes cleared. Michael. He sat beside her. You wanted to see me. Nora studied his ring. Did you find Victor? Yes. Is he dead? Michael looked at Emma. She remained by the window. Yes. Nora nodded. No satisfaction, only exhaustion. And Michael took a breath. We found him. Nora's eyes filled immediately. Where outside reading? Her hands began shaking. Michael continued softly. He died 12 years ago. Nora stared at the floor. I knew. Emma came closer. Nora whispered, I knew every time the door did not open. She started crying. Emma knelt beside her. Michael looked away. After a while, Nora asked, Was he alone? Michael answered honestly, I do not know. She closed her eyes. He hated being alone. Michael said he left letters. Nora looked at him. He tried to tell the truth. She nodded slowly. Was that enough? Michael thought about Ethan, Daniel, Victor, the grave, the men still fighting over pieces of the Kane organization. No. Nora looked down. Michael added, but it mattered. Nora reached for his hand. Her fingers touched the ring. For a moment, the expression on her face changed. That ring. Michael looked at it. Ethan gave it to me. Nora smiled faintly. Daniel loved his, did he? He pretended he did not. That sounded exactly like Daniel. Michael smiled. Nora looked at him. What did Ethan say they meant? Michael answered, broken men trying to build something better. Nora frowned, then shook her head. No. Michael looked at her. No. Nora touched the cracked scales. Daniel said Ethan told him it meant men could change. Michael went still. Nora smiled. Daniel was wrong about many things. She looked directly at Michael. But not that. Then the clarity began to leave her. Nora looked toward Emma. Sweetheart? Emma took her hand. Yes, Mom. Nora pointed toward Michael. Who is your friend? Emma glanced at him. Michael did not correct her. Emma smiled. Someone who stayed. 3 weeks after Victor's death, Michael drove to the cemetery where Ethan had been buried. He went alone. No Mason, no driver, no guards walking beside him. The winter grass was wet beneath his shoes. Ethan's grave looked exactly as it always did. Clean stone, simple name, dates Michael never needed to read. He stood there for several minutes without speaking. Then he removed the ring. For years he had thought of it as Ethan's final connection to him. After Ethan died, Michael wore it to remind himself why Daniel Cross had to be found. Now that idea felt almost insulting. He placed the ring on Ethan's headstone. The gold looked small against the gray stone. Michael stared at it. You were right. Wind moved through the bare trees. Michael shook his head. I hate that you were right. He almost left the ring there. Then remembered Nora's words. Men could change. Michael picked it up. He put it back on. Not because he could not let Ethan go, because he finally understood that Ethan had never given him the ring to remember death. Michael left the cemetery before dark. Emma returned to Marlowe's diner the following week, only for one final shift. She had re-enrolled in nursing school. Classes began Monday. Nora's care was paid for from Daniel's money. The old medical debt was being settled. For the first time in years, Emma could imagine a month without calculating which bill had to remain unpaid. She should have felt light. Instead, something bothered her. Michael had not called in 19 days. No messages, no black SUV outside the nursing facility, no mysterious men standing across the street. Nothing. He had given her distance. Exactly what she had once wanted. Emma hated how much she noticed. At 11:48 that night, the front door of Marlowe's opened. Emma looked up. Michael walked inside. No suit, no guards beside him. Dark jacket, black shirt. He looked tired, less polished, more human. He sat in the same corner booth. Emma stared at him for several seconds, then took the coffee pot. She walked over. Coffee. Michael looked up. Black. Emma poured. Her eyes moved automatically toward his hand. The ring was still there. You kept it. Michael glanced down. Yes. I thought you might bury it with Ethan. I almost did. Why did you not? Michael looked at the broken scales. I finally know what it means. Emma folded her arms. And what does it mean? Michael thought. A man can spend a long time becoming one thing and still decide what he becomes next. Emma narrowed her eyes. That sounds rehearsed. It was a long drive. She smiled. Michael looked at the coffee. Emma waited. You disappeared. I was busy. 19 days busy. Michael looked up. You counted no. He raised an eyebrow. Emma sighed. Yes. Michael almost smiled. I thought you wanted space. I did. So I gave you space. Emma pulled out the seat opposite him. That was irritatingly respectful. I can stop. Do not. He looked at her. Emma sat. Why are you here? Michael's expression changed. I came to say goodbye. The words hurt more than Emma expected. She hid it. Where are you going? Nowhere. Then that is a strange goodbye. Michael looked toward the window. There are still people who hate me, I assumed. Some of them will use anything close to me. Emma understood. You mean me? Yes. And my mother? Yes. Michael continued. I can keep distance. Make sure nobody connects you to me. Emma stared at him. You are doing it again. What deciding? His expression hardened. This is not about control. Yes, it is. It is about keeping you alive. Emma leaned forward. You do not get to decide what risks I take. I can decide not to make you take them. That sounds noble. It is not. Michael looked at his coffee. Emma waited. Finally he said, I am afraid. That silenced her. Michael Kane had admitted many things. Violence, guilt, revenge, never fear. He looked at her. I know what to do when someone points a gun at me. Emma said nothing. I know how to find people who threaten me. I know how to make men afraid to come back. His voice softened. I know how to lose people. Emma's expression changed. Michael continued. I do not know how to have something I am afraid to lose. The diner seemed quieter around them. Emma looked down at his hand. You keep talking about me like I am something you have to protect. You are. No. Michael frowned. Emma reached across the table. I am someone who gets to choose. Michael watched her. I am going back to school. I know. My mother comes first. I know. I am not moving into one of your houses. I did not ask. You would. I was considering it. Emma almost laughed. And if you send men to follow me without telling me, I will notice. That depends on the men. Michael, fine. She touched the ring, turned it slowly around his finger. The first time I saw this, you looked like you had seen a ghost. Michael looked at her. I had. And now he thought about Daniel, Ethan, Nora, Victor, the diner floor covered in broken glass. Emma standing beside him when leaving would have been easier. Now I think the ghost finally stopped running. Emma studied him, then she leaned across the table and kissed him. Michael went still for half a second. The most dangerous man she had ever met looked completely unprepared. Emma pulled back. "You really did not see that coming? No, good." Michael looked at her. Then for the first time since she had known him, he laughed without restraint. Outside, Philadelphia moved beneath the cold night sky. Cars passed. Streetlights reflected across wet pavement. Inside Marlowe's, Emma poured another cup of black coffee. Michael stayed in the corner booth, and the ring that had once opened 12 years of buried blood remained on his hand while hers rested beside it on the table.